Inshallah, I'll be reciting Surah Al-Fajr. Salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Okay, close it.
ورحمة الله. Once again, we offer our sincere condolences to the family of young Khadijah, her parents, her grandparents, her uncles, her siblings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this an easy time for them. It is a challenging time. May He make them successful in this challenging test, grant them patience and the reward of as-sabirin, the patient ones, inshallah. As it is the tradition that we have this session, reflections on the Holy Quran, we were in fact in Surah Hud, and inshallah, time allowing, we will continue the Tafseer of this surah to the best of our ability. And perhaps, although this session was intended as in honor of the lover of Quran who was over here with us participating and making this session a lot more joyful and lively, it's not just this session. I feel like continuing from here, she would be with us, and continuing from here, every session would have her with us. And subhanAllah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His wisdom, through His knowledge, with her physical departure, the gathering in the session is a lot more lively, and many more were able to participate. In honor of that, I want to at least reflect on what we discussed, or a summary of what we've been discussing at Surah Hud, and then I want to reflect a little on the ayat, or the last few ayat of Surah Al-Fajr, and especially on the term An-Nafs Al-Mutma'inna. As we begin the holy month of Ramadan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us all to fast and recite the Quran in this month and be sincere in our ibadah, be amongst those whose ibadah, whose fasting and qiyam, standing and praying and recitations are accepted, inshallah. The Surah Hud is one of the surahs that were revealed in Mecca. I met some revert a while ago, not so long, quite recently, and he gave me his Quran that he recites from. It was a very personal journey. He somehow decided to recite the Quran and decided that this is the truth. And he became a Muslim through that, by himself. No influence, no nothing. However, when he learned in his Quran, he had a table handwritten, the names of the chapters, but not in the order that it is. And I was surprised. I said, "You've written this?" He said, "Yes." "So what is it?" He said, "Look at it." I'm looking and I realized it's the order of revelation. Although some parts or some ayat or some even chapters are subject of debate whether they were before or after, there are differences in opinions. Nevertheless, mostly, for the most part, it is the order of revelation is known and it's different. And so he was reading the Quran in the order of revelation. He said, when I realized this, I started reading from the first chapter revealed and so on, because I wanted to accompany the Prophet with his journey. SubhanAllah, many of us born Muslim, we grow up in Muslim families, we don't have that perhaps thought or such thoughts of how do we read the Quran, how do we reflect on the Quran, how is the Quran a journey, so we're journeying with it. Rather, we are just reading as a custom, part of our custom. Even in the month of Ramadan, many who do the khatm, which again is a wonderful, wonderful ibadah, and I urge mu'mineen and mu'minat not to allow it to die. Unfortunately, as time is going, less people are inclined to sit and read a full juz' parts of the 30 parts, and therefore full khatim. In some centers, they may include some 10, 15 minutes, for the Quran. In other words, they do not do the khatim. So this is in fact a shameful situation. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan is introduced with the revelation of the Quran, the one that the Quran is revealed in. And then later on, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. If you witness the month, therefore you fast, or fast the month. And so, coming back to أُنزِلَ فِيهِ القرآن, the month is introduced with the Holy Quran. The hadith or the famous sermon of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he delivered it in welcoming the month. It was still the month of Sha'ban, so it's referred to as Al-Khutbah Sha'baniyya. Nevertheless, it was about the month of Ramadan. That itself tells us how significant the month is. So we don't wait until the month comes before we start preparing ourselves. The Prophet was delivering that sermon, preparing the people in advance. And in there he says, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you the opportunity to fast and recite Quran. لِصِيَامِهِ وَتِلَاوَةِ كِتَابِهِ. That you fast and you recite Quran. This is the month, not fast and feast. Unfortunately, for some people, it's about feasts and festivals and sporting activities, all sorts of things. Quran is the last thing on the list. Let's not allow certain cultures to overtake the beauty of the month of Ramadan, which is through the Holy Quran. It is, in fact, what makes the month so special, so beautiful. Those halaqat of reciting the Holy Quran, some they do it in salat. We can do it in halaqat, so it's not bid'ah, and so it's more attention for everybody. Because in salat, I've seen where the imam is reciting, and after a heavy meal, everyone is just, mentally or even physically sleeping. So halaqat of Quran, everyone should recite and everyone should reflect. Recitation with reflection. Please, my dear brothers and sisters, لا خير في قراءة لا تدبر فيها. There is no good, as Imam Ali alayhi salam says, no good in a recitation that there is no tadabbur in it. So inshallah we will continue this in this month, and after the month of Ramadan, continue the tradition of reciting and reflecting on the ayat of the Holy Quran. And the honor or the instigation of this great halaqah was through young Khadijah, her parents, and their concern for their children to teach them the Holy Quran. I was listening to a recording of the father teaching this young girl Surah An-Naba, if I'm not mistaken, and she was reciting so beautifully. They instilled the love of Quran into their children, so they get excited. I'm sure she would be chasing him to tell him when is the next session, and this is why she was known as the lover of the Holy Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity to instill the love of Quran in our children, and through that, sadaqah jariyah, a real sadaqah jariyah continues for us. Some think sadaqah jariyah is only physical, that you establish something, you construct something. No, sometimes sadaqah jariyah could be through teaching something, and it continues. They teach, and they then, in turn, they go and teach others, and it just keeps going, flowing, and becoming bigger and wider. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to do that and be amongst the lovers of the Holy Quran. Back to the order of revelation and the surah being Makkiyah, the chapters that are revealed in Mecca deal with the core principles, which today we definitely need those. The very core principles of Islam. The reason I gave the example of this brother going and reciting by the order of revelation is because human society, Quran flows with time. We have riwayat al-jari, Quran flows with time. And in every time, every part of the Quran is applicable. It's not that, okay, some ayat were for Mecca, now we're past that time, so that those ayat do not apply. No. They apply for every individual in their journey and for every society in their journey, which part of the journey they are. So for some of us, we might be still stuck in the Mecca society. We have idols that we indirectly, unknowingly worship, obey, and we need to get rid of those idols. We have traditions. One of the problems of the people in Mecca, or people before the migration and people during that time of the revelation, during the time of Mecca, one of the problems is that they had fabricated lies against God, suggesting some laws that were not from God. That was a major problem. That they made law and they said this is divine law. one could say, okay, this is our legal system, and we are following it because we are going to be agnostic. Okay, we're not going to mix the religion with this, state. We're going to keep them separate. However, if one is suggesting that they are following God and they fabricate and lie against God or make laws that are actually against God's laws and the teachings of his messengers, that is more dangerous. There was a story that a king said to his, how much time do we have? 2-3 hours? Inshallah, I won't keep you much longer or very long, inshallah. I'll try and keep it brief. The king was having a conversation with a wise minister. And so he said, which one is more powerful? He said, what are you referring to? He said, holiness, the concept of something having holiness, qadasa, or luck, mere luck. So the king said, luck. The minister said, no, it's holiness. It's a lot more powerful. He said, how do you say that? So he said, the king said, I'll prove you wrong. You're the wise minister, but I'll prove you wrong. He said, okay. He said, let's go. They went to the street. And he looked at the people, and by random, he chose somebody, a layman worker cleaning the street. He said, come, take him, dress him up, groom him, put the nicest clothing on him, and bring him back. He brought him back. You're a minister now. You're one of the ministers in our cabinet. Beautiful, okay? So he said, this is luck. And the king thought he was successful. So the minister said to the king, it's okay, wait. He went out and he found a donkey. This time, it was a donkey. It was not a human even. And then he started telling people, I found the donkey of Jesus, peace be upon him. Isa alayhi salam. This is the donkey of Jesus. Come people, come everybody. This is the donkey of Jesus. You can get blessings from it, healing, whatever. So everybody started coming and throwing their golds at the donkey, grooming the donkey. And so, after a few days, the minister said to the king, what I did, not even the king can stop. This holiness, qadasa, not even the king can stop. Think about it. If the king tries to stop the people, what would they do? They would fight back. This is holy. Okay. When you make some laws, as in a religious, a divine law, it's very dangerous. No matter what society we're in. When you try and, when you have something that is given holiness, this qadasa title, that is a sacred thing, it could be beautiful if it's really godly. But when it's not, it's an extremely dangerous weapon. This whole idea of, the terrorism that is attached to certain groups of faith, in many cases, it is through literally brainwashing people to do whatever it is under the name of religion. They're in Jahiliyyah, they considered their laws as divine laws. Whatever laws they have, they considered as divine laws. So the problem of shirk is not, and I've said this before, the problem of shirk is not just that God doesn't like an opponent. It's not, God is not like us. God wants beauty. When you put, or when someone, inshallah, one of us, when somebody puts an opponent for God, is introducing an alternative law, that alternative law is going to ruin the society. It's going to ruin people. That is the problem with shirk. And that is why Anbiya come, the number one thing they fight against is shirk. إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. So the surahs that are Makki deal with that mostly, both beliefs and practices of Jahiliyyah. And today, the application is very similar. If we have any level of shirk, and for some people it could be as clear as what we refer to as a shirk al-jalil, the very obvious, and for some people it could be very hidden, and it is referred to as a shirk al-khafi, the hidden shirk. And so for every one of us, we need to work with our level, which level it is, as we read the ayat. So when we read the ayat in Surah Hud or Surah Yunus, which we did, or chapters that were revealed in Mecca, when we read those, we need to focus on our journey through those ayat, journey away from shirk, journey away from traditions that came from anyone or any system besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, away from them. Unfortunately, there are practices in Muslim communities, in Shia Muslim communities, that are not from God, not from the Messenger of God, not from Ahlul Bayt. They're from the cultures that we were in. If they're good practices, no problem. But in many cases, they are, or there are practices that are, in fact, contradictory to the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of God and the Bayt, salawatullah wa salam alayhim ajma'in. So we journey through the ayat of the Holy Quran in this manner. When it's speaking, what we read in the hadith, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, we have a narration about Imam Hassan alayhi salam. When he reads the Holy Quran, he reads it assuming that God is speaking to him. So when the ayah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, the Imam says, Labbaik Allahum. Yes, sir, type thing. Okay? Labbaik Allahum is like what we say, yes, sir. I'm at your service. What is the message for me? What do you want from me so I can submit and do whatever is expected of me? So the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, this is how they read the Quran. Imam Allah alayhi salam, he says that I read the Quran every 3 days. And if I want to, I can read it every day. But I read it every 3 days. This is the key. This is the important point. He said, because I want to reflect. So in other words, if I read faster and do it at once, I won't have enough time to reflect. The Imam, the one who's divinely appointed and divinely inspired and taught, even the Imam, he says that I read and reflect on the ayat of the Holy Quran. What about us? We need to make sure that we participate in these gatherings of reflections on the ayat of the Holy Quran eagerly. And no one should think, I've done good enough in my religious journey. I pray, I fast, I pay my homes, I fulfill my duties in general. So I've gone to Hajj, so I've completed. And I'm married too, so basically religion is completed. Because you can't complete it without marriage, can you? من تزوج فقد أحرز نصف دينه. Inshallah will help our youth complete their faith sooner than later, before the society and the shaitan and his arms take the other half. If we don't help them complete it, shaitan will take the other half. Inshallah, we will help them. coming back to the ayat from Surah Al-Fajr, specifically, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. One of the purposes of the month of Ramadan in the spiritual journeys throughout the year, including this whole month, شهر Ramadan. And I mentioned, I believe it was yesterday in Jum'ah, that the reason why there's emphasis on Shahr Ramadan could be to remind us of a month of ibadah. It could be other reasons. Unfortunately, I had some people suggesting that no, in riwayat it's not clear that it should be said Shahr Ramadan. You can say Ramadan. And I have to clarify, with no offense to anyone, we cannot be dismissive of Sahih riwayat. When it comes to this particular riwayat or riwayat, this particular concept, we have a number of Sahih riwayat, confirmed Sahih riwayat in Al-Kafi, and Allama al-Majlisi mentions it and has a whole chapter on it. Allama al-Hurr al-Amili, he has a whole chapter on it. In fact, he has a bab, basically a chapter. Bab is like a chapter. He has a chapter named the chapter of makruh, or karahiyat, he calls it. He just says it's not haram, and he explains why, but why it's makruh to say Ramadan and not say Shahr Ramadan. Okay? He is trying to explain that it's makruh because the riwayah sounds like it's haram, but he is deriving the makruh aspect from other riwayat and other concepts. This is how powerful it is, and we dismiss it because I'm not sure why and what are the bases of the dismissal, but we need to be careful, inshallah. And when we are assessing riwayat or a concept, even if we have an opinion, we are not dismissive of a riwayah that is a strong riwayah. And I've said it to mu'mineen and mu'minat, even if something doesn't make sense to us, pin it, don't dismiss it. If something, and if the application is dangerous for us, okay, you can say, I have doubts about this. But if the application is not dangerous, it's a simple teaching from the Ahlul Bayt. Back to the reason, or one of the reasons, perhaps Shahr Ramadan, because it's a month of spirituality, a month of spiritual journey. It's not like, okay, daily salat. Daily salat is a spiritual journey, extremely powerful. There is so much emphasis about it that when it comes to the daily salat, if one abandons it, is considered a kafir. There's no difference. Abandonment of salat is kufr. It's so significant. However, daily salat is a short few minutes of a spiritual journey. Okay, between the wudu and salat. Remember, wudu is part of that spiritual journey. But the month of Ramadan is a whole month of having a journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And most people, especially those who are cognizant of the journey to God, most people feel it. They feel like it's coming. Okay? It's not just because of the fasting aspect, even those who are not able to fast. Some people are unwell and they cannot fast. And they've been given the exemption by their doctors that it is dangerous for you. It's not healthy, it's dangerous. It causes risk, to your health. Therefore, you cannot fast. But they still feel the journey. The month is coming. A month of spirituality, because ruh or nafs, we don't want to get into the differences, and for now we'll just keep it as the one. Okay, the core of insan, the heart, not the physical heart, the spiritual heart. Let's call it the spiritual heart here. The spiritual heart is in need of constant polishing and cleaning. It needs it. Because insan is exposed to his own self, whims and desires, and surroundings, and shaitan. Almost like one going out in the dust, and they have they go to a workplace that's unclean, mechanical workshop, let's say, exposed to all sorts of filth that would affect them physically. They need to, in the end of the day, they need to wash up. Okay. When our soul, our core, our heart is dealing with all sorts of temptations in the physical world that we're living in, also dealing with all sorts of influences from other people, and on top of that, dealing with an enemy who sees us from where we do not see him. They see you from where you do not see them. In other words, he's seeing us and we cannot see him. Imagine an enemy, he goes transparent. They put this transparency, I don't know, it's a theory, I don't know if they've come close to reality. They put something that makes them transparent, and you have to fight them. You don't know where they are, you don't know which angle they're attacking you from. This is shaitan, well aware of us, well aware of not just what we say or do. الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. He goes a level beyond. They're aware of thoughts that have not been uttered in words. You might say, how? Today, we have machines they put on your brain, and it controls the arm, robotic arms. They've already, I believe it's already in use. Yeah. So you control it by your thoughts. You didn't say anything. It's not even by your eyes, by your thoughts. So it's not far-fetched to believe that shaitan could have access to our thoughts without us saying it or expressing it. So they do see us. Innahu qabiluhu, him and his army, they see us, even our thoughts. And we cannot see them. They attack us. We cannot fight back. So we need help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us help. He gives us our daily prayers. He gives us al-Fatiha. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. You're asking the omnipotent, the one whose power has no limits, asking him to help you, guide you, despite an enemy you cannot see. We have that kind of power. We have the month of Ramadan. Amazingly, the hadith says, what happens, shayateen, what happens to them? They get chained. Okay? Not physical chain, perhaps. Allahu A'lam. It could be something material, a material chain that is related to their kind of being. Nevertheless, they are in chains, perhaps because of where we're at in our journey. In other words, they're limited. They cannot do much because of where the believers are and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it. So it is an opportunity for us to travel, because shayateen are trying to pull us back. In our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shaitan, his army, are trying to pull us back. Even shayateen al-jinni wal-ins, within humans as well. They're trying to pull us back. And in order for us to travel, we need some help, certain stations that you can gain power, rest, and get some refuel, ammunition, and get back on the journey. One of those journeys or spiritual station is the holy month of Ramadan, a whole month of opportunities of growth, opportunities of gaining nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and traveling with the nafs. There's a hadith, our ulama of akhlaq and the Gnostics, perhaps amongst our scholars, their theories are based on hadith. We have some who base it on other things. We will leave those alone. We're focusing on those who are basing it on hadith and the ayat of the Holy Quran. When they look at nafs, they speak of nafs on different levels. Somebody came to Imam Ali alayhi salam. It was none other than Kumayl, the famous companion who we recite Dua Kumayl. It was taught by Imam Ali alayhi salam to Kumayl. He says, I asked Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, فقلت يا أمير المؤمنين أريد أن تعرفني نفسي. I said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I want you to introduce me to my nafs. I want to know my nafs. Based on this hadith and the likes, our teachers of akhlaq classify nafs on different levels. The Imam, he gives 4 categories, some of them related to the physical nafs, the nafs and its relationship with our physical being. Okay, so there's the nafs and its relationship with our physical life. Okay, so it's attached to the physical life. I want you to remember this because we're coming back to it at the end. There's a nafs that's attached to the physical life, and it has to do with food, it has to do with desires, and therefore it's protective of the body, it's protective of its needs, and so on. And then a nafs related to the rationality and thinking, a nafs that is Rabbaniyya, it's godly. And that's the highest level, within which there are also levels. Okay, so the 4 categories exist from the beginning of the journey, and how you control them, it helps us grow through the journey. And we need to do that. We need to grow through the journey. This is why we're given the time on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us on this Mother Earth, as some may refer to it, for a reason. It is not just for us to eat and follow our whims and desires. That is what an'am. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. And then Quran says, rather, they are worse. An'am, cattle, they're worse. Yeah. In another ayah, أُولَٰئِكَ يَأْكُلُونَ وَيَتَمَتَّعُونَ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ الْأَنْعَامُ. They just eat and enjoy their lives like animals. Let's not be that. Let's not mistake our identity and think of ourselves as the animal, physical being. Let's recognize the Rabbaniyya within us that also wants to grow. And they have jadb and dafa. Ulama akhlaq also speak about jadiba and dafa. Have the pulling and repelling. They pull towards themselves certain things and repel certain things. And so how we treat and control ourselves throughout the journey determines which direction we're traveling even. Somebody might be traveling spiritually with their nafs towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore growing, stage by stage, step by step growing. Another might be neglecting themselves, and so they're actually going further away. And those people may get to a level where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leads them to themselves. And that's why we say, رَبِّ لَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ أَبَدًا. Don't leave me to myself, not even for a blink of an eye. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, continues this dua with saying that you allowed Yunus, my brother, Akhi Yunus, brother as in the prophethood and that level. So, and referring to him as my brother is a very special thing. Tells us that Yunus has a very high status in Anbiya even. In fact, his story and chapter is unique. We went through it. Some of you were with us. Unique in the sense that the nations that were warned and did not pay heed were one after the other destroyed, faced the consequences of their action. Nature went against them. Whereas the people of Yunus were the only nation that repented, returned, and were spared, and they lived longer, and he was sent to even more people after that. You know, the ayat continue to describe مئة ألف أو يزيدون, more than 100,000. Aw is not always or. In this case, it actually means bal, meaning rather. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not confused whether they're more than 100,000 or they're 100,000. No, He knows. But it's bal yazidun. Just like the ayah that says the Prophet, if he dies, aw qutila, it means rather is killed. Because God is not confused. He knows that they will eventually assassinate his messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it's important for every one of us, especially in this holy month of Ramadan, to help ourselves focus on what is good for ourselves. Imam Rida alayhi salam says to Abu Salt, even before the month, not just in the month, before the month, in the remaining, it was the last Friday of the month of Sha'ban, and he said to him, from here on, focus on what is important for you. Not for you as in for your, mind and what you think is important. No, what is important for you in reality, which is in the eyes of God. Focus on that. And let go, neglect what is not significant in that regard. Ma ya'neek as opposed to ma la ya'neek. Focus on ma ya'neek, what is important for your journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and neglect the things that are not significant. We are in the month of Ramadan, an opportunity for us to travel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this spiritual journey and help ourselves. Sometimes we need to help ourselves, help Ahlul Bayt, help us. Imam Ali alayhi salam, in one of his statements, he says, A'inuni, help me. With what? He says, everybody needs a leader, Imam. ألا ولكل معلوم إمام. And your Imam has found it sufficient for him to have 2 garments of this dunya and 2 pieces of bread. That's your Imam. And then he says, I know this is not possible for you. So the Imam is not expecting us to be at that level, but he says, A'inuni. Okay, help me. Help me what? Help me help you. I want to help you. I want to guide you. I want to bring you to me. I want to bring you to the highest levels that are available to you in your spiritual journey. To reach your potential, I want to help you get there, but you need to help me do that. And he says, بورع واجتهاد وعفة وسداد. Another time, inshallah, we can focus on how we can help Imam Ali alayhi salam. Coming back here, recognizing that we are on a journey, we need to help ourselves, not to make sure that I don't get hungry. Okay, it's important to make sure I can fast. Okay, so I have a sahari and so on, so I can survive and fast, because we need to fast. And therefore, the muqaddimat of it, anything that helps us as an introduction to the fasting, becomes important, becomes almost wajib, or could be wajib. Okay, if somebody knows that if they don't get up to have sahar, you have suhoor, they won't be able to fast, and if they do, they can, then it's wajib for them to make an effort to get up and have suhoor. Now, if they don't, that's a different story. But it's that effort is just like Salat al-Fajr is wajib, and you need to wake up for it and set an alarm, whatever you do, sleep early. Similarly here, having suhoor becomes wajib if it means that that's the only way you can maintain your fast. Okay. Some people, maybe they don't need that, nevertheless. So it's important to also help ourselves in a spiritual, in a physical journey. Yeah. However, the most important thing is to help ourselves in the spiritual journey. And so what do I do? The number one thing in any change, because the idea is to change. The number one thing is to recognize the need for change. You know, if an addict wants to quit, the first thing is that they need to realize that they need to quit. That's the first step. Once they realize that, then it is possible to work on the next step. But until then, now what the reason could, it could be to please my parents. Beautiful. Still a reason, okay? Or it could be for health, whatever the reason is. Please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even more beautiful. Yeah? Pleasing parents is in line with that. So what the reason is secondary. But to recognize the need for change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran that you need to change for your own life in this dunya. In this dunya. At one level, we need to realize that we can only be in a state of some state of satisfaction. Okay, rida. In this world, peace, when we have a good relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only. Quran tells us, when we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the ayah that warns us of the opposite. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. You turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll have a tough life here. So for some, the inspiration or the reason, angiza we call it in Farsi, the idea behind, improving in their perhaps spirituality or relationship with God is to have a better life. Beautiful. In itself, it's obviously the further we go in our mind, the further we go with our hearts as well. Okay. So if some people, as they drive, they just see the car in front of them. If anything goes wrong, these people are likely to not be able to avoid accidents. Okay. Even if they drive safely, but if they just see the car in front of them, it's less likely that they can avoid accidents. Some people, they look couple of cars ahead, you know. Some people, they drive for others. I don't know if you have this, in Lebanese dialect, they use this expression that you need to drive for yourself and for others. When my grandfather, may God have mercy on all the Marhumin, was sitting in the car with me, I was learning, I still remember this. He said, Jiddu, like is the grandfather calling his son. He said, you need to drive for yourself and for others. In other words, you need to look at the car in front of you, which way, what is he doing? You know, so, you know, pay attention. He's about to turn. Don't wait for him to signal. He may not signal. It looks like he's about to turn. Huh? Think for him as well. And therefore, so the bigger your vision is, the more you look ahead and the more you know, you're aware of your surroundings, the better you can travel and the less likely you could have accidents and problems. This is how it works in the physical world, and this is how it works in the spiritual journey. The more aware you are. Aware, Imam alayhi salam says, رحم الله امرئ أعد لرمسه استعد لأمسه وعلم من أين وفي أين وإلى أين. You know, the rams and hams are about the grave. And so, as we remember, we were just at the cemetery. You know, the rams is the time that, you know, we would be put. And the next one is about when they pour the sand. Some of you remember how hard it was, that part. You know, when they start pouring the sand, it's basically reality. You know, this is it. Imam alayhi salam says, prepare for that. God has mercy on those who prepare for that. And then he connects that knowledge of that time and that reality, he connects it with the answer to three key questions. He says, وَعَلِمَ مِنْ أَيْنَ, where from, وَفِي أَيْنَ, where in, وَإِلَى أَيْنَ, where to. Where from? Did we come by ourselves here? Did we choose to come here? Did anyone choose what gender, color, family, era, what time? I wanted to be in the classic times. Huh? Horses and whatever, okay? Maybe, is it up to us? And what is the best time that we should come? The time that God brought us, by the way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do anything without wisdom in it. Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadar. What is the best place that you should be in? The place that you're in. Khayrul biladi ma hamalat. The best city is the one that you're walking in, the one that's carrying you like your mother. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, the best place. Take advantage of where you are. That's the best time, that's the best place. Take advantage of it. Advantage for what? For the physical world, for money? Where are we going? Ila ayn. Where we came from? Where are we? And where are we heading to? Vision. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't be blind. Don't be neglectful. Many of us, we know it. It's not like we don't know it. We see it. You know, one of the perhaps blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the departure of children. For their parents, it's a ticket. For them, it is a free pass. The child does not enter, he says, until my parents enter with me. For others, it is not just the one lesson. How many lessons and how much wisdom one could gain if they reflect on it. It has no age. I see death, he says, like the striking of a camel that's gone wild. Camels, if they're being stabbed and they are not held properly, they go wild. And they call them in Arabic ashwa. And in the modern day, if they call a bullet that is not intended anywhere, stray, I think, stray bullet, they call it ashwa, same name. Okay? The poet says, Ara al-mawta khatta ashwa, runs crazy and strikes, whoever it strikes goes. There's absolutely no wisdom or system that we can see in terms of death. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has wisdom in everything. But for us to say, okay, one has to live this number of years and they have to have a family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, one has to go through this. That's how we see things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not limited to our minds and our thinking and our perceptions, in fact. The ruh is not the same as the body in terms of age either. In other words, we speak of ruh not having gender. Does ruh have gender? No gender. Race? Color? No. It's not the same, yeah? What about age? Does ruh have age? روح من أمر ربي. How many years we spend on this earth is relative to this earth. It is not related to the ruh itself. Yeah. And when it goes in barzakh, does it mean that somebody who passed 10,000 years ago is spending more time in barzakh than somebody who passes today or somebody who may pass 10,000 years later? No. Because that's not related to the body. Barzakh is a different realm. Yes, it's not akhirah, but it's not the same realm as this dunya and the restriction of time and space. Time and space is related to our physical body and our existence here. Realizing this, it makes it necessary for every one of us, any believer, any mu'min, to prepare and travel that journey. Okay. First step is recognition of the importance of this travel. That I need to go higher. I need to purify my heart. I need to do tazkiyah. It's not optional. It's not just for scholars, by the way. Many scholars need to do more tazkiyah than average people. They're actually more of a target of shaitan. Because if he gets one, he has gotten many. Yeah? They could easily, scholars, speakers, nowadays speakers don't need to be scholars. I don't know if that's how it should be, but unfortunately it's become this way. And so people allow, a person to speak and they could influence many. Not much knowledge, not much wisdom, not much experience, not much exposure, the etiquettes and so on, or scholars who may be affected by shaitan. That's even more dangerous. The hadith says, إِذَا فَسَدَ الْعَالِمْ فَسَدَ الْعَالَمْ. If a scholar is corrupt, then the world is corrupt. The world around them, obviously. Whoever they influence will be corrupted. Very dangerous. We all need to do tazkiyah. One of the diseases that scholars may be subject to is hasad, jealousy. Looking at the other, there's a hadith about it. Afatul ulama al-hasad. May Allah pray for me, please, that I can purify my heart from jealousy. I'm not a scholar, by the way. I'm a student, but I could be subject to, this disease. So I ask you to pray for me. Any one of us is subject to certain diseases. And it's a must that we need to cure our hearts from those diseases. Tazkiyah is not an option. قد أفلح من زكاه وقد خاب من دساه. It is not something that we can think, okay, it's good to do tazkiyah. Some Gnostics, we appreciate them. أحب الصالحين ولست منهم. There's a poet said, I love the righteous ones, but I'm not a righteous person. I love them. And that love is good, but if it's real, it leads to one following. Yes, إن المحب لمن أحب مطيع. If you love, you follow. If we love Ahlul Bayt, we want to be like Ahlul Bayt. So tazkiyah to nafs, and traveling with our nafs from the lowest nafs that is so attached to the physical world and the physical existence, to a nafs that all it wants is nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An-nafsul mutma'inna. It is said to it, ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. Return to your Lord. There are ahadith about nafsul mu'min. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Sudayr al-Sayrafi, he says, I asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, would the soul of the believer be taken by force, like without him wanting it? أيكره المؤمن على قبض روحه? Is he going to be forced, like whether he likes it or not, it's going to happen to you? Would the angel of death come to a believer and say, I'm here to take your soul whether you like it or not? Is that how it works? The Imam did not say yes or no. Instead, he explained something. He said, when a believer is about to depart, when a pure soul is about to depart, their vision would be opened. They see realities. And a munadi, a call comes from the heavens, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, من قبل رب العزة. فيقول يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. Calls that nafs that has reached that state of complete peace, مطمئنة, submitting in complete peace with whatever comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says to that nafs, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة إلى محمد وأهل بيته. اللهم صل على محمد وأهل بيته. And then ارجعي إلى ربك. Then the nafs would not want to go back to this world. When they see what they're going to, that is what they want. You see the difference between a nafs that is so attached to a physical being, a body that is only a vehicle that is so protective of it, and a nafs that says, my Lord, relieve me. Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala, he was saying, أغثني يا غياث المستغيثين إلهي رضا بقضائك لا معبود سواك أغثني يا غياث المستغيثين. He just wants to go back to his Lord. It is almost like this world that I'm in is not a world that I want to be. I want to be with you. I want to be with Muhammad and Ahl Muhammad. Allahumma salli. That's where I want to be. I have a mission. I have to fulfill it. He doesn't know if this is the time that the mission is fulfilled, but he wants ghiyad from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ghiyad, help from God, a rain of mercy on him, is when he has fulfilled his mission, returning to his Lord. Salawatullah wa salam. I know it's the beginning of the month of Ramadan, but the mention of the name of Imam Hussein alayhi salam brought me to a difficult situation around the same time as the Imam was on the plains of Karbala. One of the children of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Abdullah ibn al-Hassan, he came towards Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Then Zainab salamullah alayha, the Imam said to her, hold him, hold the children, hold him, don't let him. And then an accursed enemy came to strike the Imam with the sword. So this child escaped. He escaped and came and threw himself at the Imam, and he said to the cursed one, he said, oh son of the adulteress, you want to strike my master, my uncle Abu Abdullah? The strike came at the hand of the child, Abdullah ibn al-Hassan, and it cut it. His arm cut off. He came to the bosom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Last moments, the Imam is witnessing yet another calamity, salawatullah wasalam alayhi. He says to his family members, sabran, patience, patience. This dunya is a place of bala, a place of trials, and you only need to be patient. So he said, be patient and you will be victorious. And the aqibah is the ending is yours. The good ending and the hereafter is yours through your salah. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بمحمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وبالتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين استجب دعواتنا يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك. Make our hearts steadfast upon the religion, Ya Allah. Help us purify in this holy month of Ramadan, gain nearness to you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, grant patience to all mu'mineen and mu'minat in difficulty, especially the family of our beloved Khadijah. Ya Allah, grant them abundance of your mercy and patience and the reward of Sabirin, Ya Allah. Help us be amongst the sincere lovers and followers of Ahlul Bayt. Make us amongst those who prepare for the return of the Imam through raising awareness, through studying and reflecting on the ayat of the Holy Quran. Ya Allah. يا أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات الشهداء الصالحين إلى أرواح موتى الحاضرين الباذلين المؤسسين رحم الله من قرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة حفظها صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد.
This was one of the favorite recitals of Khadijah, and at the same time, it's a reminder for us as well as to what it's important for us to hold on to. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat. हम हुसैन वाले हैं ہم حسین والے ہیں، یہ ہماری قسمت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے. ہم نبی کے عاشق ہیں، ہم علی کے دیوانے، اور حسن کی نسبت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے. ہم سے فاطمہ زہرا کر چکی ہے ایک وعدہ، اب ہماری جنت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے ہیں. یا علی کی مدحت ہے، یا حسین کا ماتم، ہر نفس عبادت ہے، ہم حسین والے، ہم حسین والے ہیں. ہم بتاتے دنیا کو، ہم سے پوچھتی دنیا، ہم میں کتنی لذت ہے. دور تک گئے موسیٰ اور کربلا تک ہم، یہ ہماری رفعت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے ہیں، حسین والے ہیں. رحم الله من قرأ سورة مباركة الفاتحة.